Hello everyone, my name is Trilochan. As a part of our NCERT series, we are discussing 6th class history, our past one. In this video, we are going to take up our next chapter, New Questions and Ideas. This chapter revolves around what kind of questions people had in their mind during the ancient period. While finding answers to these questions, they had developed several ideas in general, religious ideas in particular. What was the main reason behind these questions? Reason was several changes were taking place right from later Vedic period to 6th and 5th centuries BC. What kind of changes were taking place during this time? Take the society. Society was divided into 4 varnas based on the birth. By 6th century BC, this varna system was very well entrenched in the society. And what about sacrifices and rituals? Importance of sacrifices and rituals were increasing. These sacrifices and rituals were becoming elaborate and expensive as well. Among these 4 varnas, Brahmins were occupying the topmost position. They were enjoying monopoly in performing religious rites, and also they acted as teachers. That's why they were dominant and they were enjoying the topmost position in the Varna system. And if you look at the economy, during this time iron was introduced. Several implements and weapons were made out of iron. And they used those implements to clear the forest in the Gangetic basin. They've got vast tracts of fertile lands. Now, they started using iron plowshare. And they understood the technique of transplantation of paddy. Because of this, they increased the agriculture production. Because of this surplus agriculture production, many people, they devoted themselves to non-agricultural activities like trading and craft making. Slowly, urban settlements were developing because of these non-agricultural activities. Because of the trading and other economic activities, so new social groups were emerging during this period. Those groups were actually not allowed to participate in the sacrifices and rituals. So for them, these sacrifices and rituals were irrelevant. Of course, they were economically dominant, but their position in the society was defined by Brahmins. So they were not happy. And what about the polity? This later Vedic period was basically a rural society. After realizing the importance of fertile lands, rulers started occupying the neighboring territories. Janapadas are now becoming Mahajanapadas. By the 6th century BC, 16 Mahajanapadas were present in the Indian subcontinent. These Mahajanapadas, 16 Mahajanapadas, were also known as Shodasa Mahajanapadas. All these Mahajanapadas were mentioned in several Buddhist and Jaina texts. Most of these 16 Mahajanapadas were concentrated in and around Gangetic and Yamuna basin region. Some of the rulers of Mahajanapadas were growing more powerful than before. And even rulers were also not ready to accept the dominant position of the Brahmins in the society, and even they were not ready to accept the position that was defined by the Brahmins. So, some kind of discontent was growing against the ritualistic orthodox ideas. Some thinkers started developing the heterodox religious ideas. So, all these changes were taking place from later Vedic period to 6th and 5th centuries BC. Because of this reason, people started thinking, and many people wanted to understand the changes in the society. Because cities were developing, villages were developing, several changes were taking place in the cities. They just wanted to understand these changes in the society. They just try to find out the true meaning of life. Some thinkers, they just wanted to know about the life after death. And some people, they started thinking, what was the need for performing sacrifices? And most of the thinkers felt that there was something permanent in the universe that would last even after death. They described this as Atman. What was permanent even after death was Atman. They described it as Atman or individual soul, Brahman or universal soul. But they believed that both Atman and Brahman were one and the same. So all these ideas were very well recorded in Upanishads. These Upanishads were part of later Vedic texts. Vedas were composed during Vedic and later Vedic period. During Vedic period, Rig Veda was composed, and during later Vedic period, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda were composed. And after that, several other books were composed. Among those, Upanishads. Upanishads were a part of later Vedic texts. And what is Upanishad? Upanishad literally means approaching and sitting near. So most of the Upanishadic thinkers were men, especially Brahmins and rulers. There were some exceptions. Women thinkers were also lived during this period. For example, Gargi. She was known for her learning. She participated in various debates and discussions held in royal courts. People from poorer sections were rarely participated in these kind of debates and discussions. For example, Satyakama Jabala, and he was the son of a slave woman called Jabali. And Satyakama Jabala had a deep interest to learn about reality. So a Brahman teacher named Gautama accepted him as a student. He became one of the famous thinkers of this period. So whatever ideas which were recorded in these Upanishads were slowly added over a period of time. For example, during 7th century AD, Shankaracharya's ideas were also recorded in the Upanishads. These Upanishads consist of the conversations between teachers and students, and these conversations were mentioned in the form of dialogue. They had developed these ideas because of questions. So they wanted to find answers to those questions. In the process, they had developed ideas. These questions came because of the changes that were taking place in the society, economic dominance of the new social groups, power of rulers were growing, and at the same time, these ideas totally different from the ritualistic orthodox ideas in the society. Some kind of opposition was growing against those orthodox ideas. Because of that, there was a set of ideas came into being. Some of the ideas were religious ideas. Those ideas were heterodox religious ideas. Among those heterodox religious ideas, Buddhism and Jainism were famous because those two religions got immense social support in the society. So we are going to take up both Buddhism and Jainism now. So first we will take up Buddhism. Siddhartha, he was also known as Gautama, was born in the 6th century BC at Lumbini Grove, and his father was Suddhodana, and he was the leader of Sakya clan, and his mother was Maya, and she was the princess of Koliya clan, and he was married to Yashodhara, and he had a son named Rahula by her. He was enjoying the luxurious royal life. One day he was traveling on a chariot, and he was deeply affected by the sight of an old man and a sick person. Sick person means the person who was suffering from disease. And he saw a dead man, that means a dead body, and an ascetic. And he started thinking about the miseries of the human life. And he wanted to find a solution to this misery. At the age of 29, he left the comforts of his home in search of knowledge, and he wandered for several years, and during that time he held several meetings and discussions with various thinkers. Among those thinkers, he met a sage named Alara Kalama. Buddha learned the technique of meditation and the teachings of Upanishads from Alara Kalama, and he was not satisfied, and he just wanted to find his own path to realization. Then he went to Uruvela near modern Bodh Gaya. He sat under peepal tree on the banks of river Niranjana and he started meditation. On the 49th day, he attained enlightenment. So from then on, he was known as Buddha, means enlightened one or wise one. And he proceeded to a deer park at Sarnath near Varanasi. He gave his first sermon to a small group of people. That means he taught for the first time to a small group. This event was known as Dharma Chakra Pravartana. Buddha, when he left the comforts of his home at the age of 29, that incident was known as Mahabhi Nishkramana. From then onwards, he started traveling on foot from one place to another place, teaching people. And finally, Buddha died in the vicinity of Kusinara. It was the capital of Malla Mahajanapada. So that was a republic. So what it indicates, Buddha's last rites were performed by the Mallas. And what Buddha taught, his basic teachings were revolved around Four Noble Truths and Ashtangika Marga. What were those Four Noble Truths? Life is full of sufferings, and we can say that life is full of sorrow, life is full of unhappiness. What was the reason behind these sufferings? He said that ignorance, attachment, desires were causes for these sufferings, and one has to destroy these causes. So these were all causes, okay? One has to destroy these causes to remove sufferings. That was the third among Four Noble Truths. And an individual had to find a path to destroy these causes. What was that path? Eightfold path. Ashtangika Marga. Right observation and right determination. That means right aim. Right speech, right action, right livelihood, a right effort or right exercise, a right memory, that means right mindfulness, okay, a right meditation, that means concentration. So these are Ashtangika Marga taught by the Buddha. If we get what we want, we will not be satisfied. We may even want more. This condition was described by the Buddha as thirst or tanha. He emphasized on the law of karma. What is it? The condition of an individual life in the present and the future would always depends upon his past actions. So that was the law of karma. The Buddha preached nirvana. Actually, nirvana is the ultimate goal in the life of a man. And he was talking about the destruction of desire to end sufferings. A man can attain freedom from a rebirth. He emphasized on the moral life of an individual, and he taught that sacrifices and prayers would not destroy desire. Buddha neither accepted nor rejected the God. That means he was agnostic. He was more concerned on the individual and his actions. He did not believe in the existence of soul, and he emphasized more on the love and kindness. That means love and kindness can be expressed on all living beings by following ahimsa. He advocated a middle path instead of luxurious life or severe asceticism. He rejected the authority of Vedas. He condemned animal sacrifices, and he protested against the various rituals and prayers. The Buddha attacked caste system and the dominance of Brahmins in the society. So that was the main reason most of the social groups immediately attracted towards the Buddhism. And he even encouraged people to think for themselves. And now we'll take up Jainism. Vardhamana was born in Kundagrama, and his father was Siddhartha, the leader of Gnatrika clan, and his mother Trishala was the princess of Lichavi clan. These two clans were part of Vajji Mahajanapada. This Vajji Mahajanapada was a republic. And Vardhamana married to Yashoda and he had a daughter by her. At the age of 30, he left the house with a single garment and he wandered for 12 years. At the age of 42, he attained supreme knowledge. So from then, he was known as Mahavira, that means supreme hero, and Nirgrandha, free from fetters, and also known as Jina, that means conqueror. So his followers were known as Jainas. Mahavira was the 24th Tirthankara according to Jaina tradition. It indicates that concept of Jaina faith existed even before Mahavira. So he was the 24th Jaina Tirthankara. 23rd Tirthankara, Parshvanatha. Parshvanatha laid down several doctrines. Mahavira accepted those doctrines which were laid down by Parshvanatha. So what were the 4 basic principles which were laid down by Parshvanatha? Truth, that means honesty. Followers had to be honest, and non-violence, that is ahimsa. Non-possession, that means not to steal anything. And 4th principle of Parshvanatha was not to accept anything that was not voluntarily given. So Mahavira added one more doctrine to these 4 basic principles. He added celibacy, that means Brahmacharya. Mahavira asked his followers to observe Brahmacharya or observe celibacy. So Mahavira taught that Jiva and Ajiva were 2 basic elements. What is Jiva? That is soul, and Ajiva means matter. This soul and matter were 2 basic elements. He said that soul is in the state of bondage that was created by desire. To remove soul from this bondage, there must be a constant effort. The constant efforts could relieve soul from the bondage. He described this condition as moksha or nirvana, and he believed that one could attain nirvana by following 3 basic principles known as Ratnatraya or Triratna or 3 jewels. What were those? Right belief, right knowledge, right action. And he even said that an individual should pursue a life of purity, virtue, and renunciation to attain nirvana. He emphasized more on ahimsa. He believed that all objects had a soul. All objects means animate and inanimate. All these objects feel pain. And he even said that monastic life only could help in attaining salvation. Mahavira emphasized more on severe asceticism and extreme penance to attain nirvana. That means moksha. He advocated his followers to leave homes. Thousands of people became the followers of Mahavira, even though the rules of monastic life was very strict and difficult. Of course, traders were immediately attracted. Farmers had to kill insects to protect their crops. For them, it was very difficult to follow the rules of Jaina tradition. Both these religions immediately got huge social support because the Buddha and Mahavira taught in the language of ordinary people, and that is they used Prakrit. There were different forms of Prakrit was spoken in different parts of the country. For example, the Prakrit language which was used in the Magadha region was known as Magadhi. The Buddha and Mahavira came up with an idea called Sangha. Sangha was an association for all the people who left their homes. They encouraged people to leave their homes to gain true knowledge. So Buddhist Sangha was very well organized and it was governed by democratic principles. The Buddhist Sangha was empowered to enforce discipline. The membership was open to all men who were above 15 years old. That means Children had to take permission of their parents. Debtors had to take permission of their creditors. And the slaves had to take the permission of their masters. And those who were working for the king had to take permission of the king. What about women? Initially, the Buddha was not in favor of admitting women into the Sangha. Later, he admitted them because of the repeated requests of his chief disciple Ananda and his foster aunt Mahapajapati Gautami. So, chief disciple Ananda, I was talking about the Buddha's first sermon at Sarnath. I just wanted to mention their names here. Aswajit, Ananda, Upali, Moggalana, and Sariputta. These were 5 people who gathered at Deer Park when the Buddha gave his first sermon. Those 5 people became his disciples. Among these, Ananda was his chief disciple. Some people were not given admission into the Buddhist Sangha. Those were criminals and the people who were suffering from leprosy, people who were suffering from other infectious diseases. The monks and nuns who became the members of this Buddhist order, they had to propagate the teachings of the Buddha and they had to travel from one place to another place. During this time, they had to beg for food from nearby cities and villages. That's why they were called bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. These were Prakritic words for beggar. In this Buddhist Sangha, they held meetings to settle quarrels among members of the Sangha. And those who joined this Sangha were from all sections: slaves, courtesans, merchants, farmers, and even Brahmins, Kshatriyas. The people generally, after becoming members of this Buddhist order, they forget their family, varna and the ranks in the society. Just like as the waters of rivers lost their names and separateness when it flows into the ocean. And the Jaina also had a very well established Sangha. It was not developed as much as Buddhist Sangha during that time. Monks and nuns who became the members of the Sangha, they had to travel from one place to another place throughout the year except the rainy season. During rainy season, they had to stay at one place. So during that time, they developed temporary shelters in gardens and natural caves in hills. In the long run, several kings, merchants, and other wealthy followers developed permanent shelters to members of the order. They built monasteries also known as viharas. What is vihara? So viharas are primarily cut out of rock for the residence of monks and nuns. These viharas were developed by excavating caves in the western coast, that means Western Ghats region. But if you look at the eastern coast of the Indian subcontinent, the eastern Ghats were discontinuous. Wherever they found hills, they excavated caves. Otherwise, they used wood and baked bricks to construct monasteries. During this time, the people from nearby villages and cities, they usually bring medicine, food, fruits. The members of this order, they usually teach meditation and also the teachings of Buddha. Both Buddhism and Jainism were becoming popular. So, but actually there were several religious preachers lived even before the Buddha. For example, Makkali Gosala, Pakuda Kaschayana, Ajita Kesa Kambalin. These were some of the religious preachers who highlighted the evils of Vedic religion, and they even developed the ideas on life and the God, and they propagated the philosophical ideas as well. Like this, many heterodox religious ideas were prominent during that time, but only Buddhism and Jainism got huge support. So if you look at the important texts of these two religions, so they conducted frequent councils as well to codify the teachings of the Buddha and Mahavira. Take Buddhism. The code of conduct for monastic life was written in a book called Vinaya Pitaka, and another book Sutta Pitaka and Abhidhamma Pitaka. So these three texts were known as Tripitakas of the Buddhism. So if you look at Sutta Pitaka consists of religious discourses and the teachings of Buddha. And Vinaya Pitaka, as I told you just now, it is the code of conduct for monastic life. And Abhidhamma Pitaka consists of philosophical interpretations of the teachings of Buddha. So when did they codify these texts? So Sutta Pitaka and Vinaya Pitaka were codified in the first Buddhist council that was held at Rajagriha. And this Abhidhamma Pitaka was codified at a third Buddhist council that was held at Pataliputra. And what about second Buddhist council and fourth Buddhist council? Second Buddhist council was held at Vaishali and fourth Buddhist council was held at Kashmir. And what about Jainism? Doctrines of Mahavira were divided into 14 texts called Parvas. And they held a first Jaina council at Pataliputra around 300 BC. In that first Jaina council, all these doctrines were codified into 12 Angas. At the second Jaina council, which was held at Vallabhi in 512 AD, that was in Gujarat, all these texts were rearranged and new editions were made in the form of Upangas. During that time, unfortunately, 12th Anga was lost. The code of conduct for monastic life written in the book called Acharanga Sutta. Both Buddhism and Jainism were becoming popular. So at that point of time, Brahmins came with an idea of system of ashramas. So what is ashrama? Here, ashrama is not a place to live and meditate, but actually it is a stage of life. So Brahmins recognized 4 stages of life. One was Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. Brahmanas recognized these 4 stages of life. That means they came up with 4 ashramas. In Brahmacharya, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, they were asked to lead a simple life and to study Vedas. And this was during the early years of their life. And what about Grihastha? They had to marry and live as householder. And what about Vanaprastha? They were asked to live in forest and meditate. And Sannyasa, they had to give up everything and live like sannyasins. So if you look at these ashramas, Brahmins emphasized on simple life and meditation, because Buddhism and Jainism emphasized more on simple life and meditation. Women were not allowed to study Vedas. They had to follow the ashrama which her husband chooses. This is all about the chapter New Questions and Ideas. In the next video, we'll come up with another topic. Thank you so much.